Hey guys, the purpose of this presentation is twofold. One of them is to show you the minimal requirements that I want you to include in your presentation of the theory you have been studying, and the other one is to talk about your third and final paper. As you see on the title of my prezi, the third paper will also be known as the final paper, and it's an elaboration on what we have already done. So let me start with, in order to do this paper, you need to read and make sure that you understand the instructional sheet that has already been uploaded to Blackboard, and it looks something like this, right? So you have here is the same setup that we had for the second paper, and what I want you to do is to tell Paulina what she should do in order to get what she wants from Roberto, if that's possible, to get at peace with herself, or to just let the whole issue go, but in such a way that it's an ethical action, right? So this paper needs to be developed in two different parts. One of them is you will elaborate, this is what you did already, or part of what you already did in your second paper. You need to elaborate on whether what she did to Roberto is ethical or not. But now the twist is that I also want you to include one of the theories your peers are going to present. So if you think about the paper, you already did this section, you already did this section with your own theory, right? Whether you're presenting on Kantian ethics or utilitarianism, you already evaluated what she did to Roberto in those terms. So now what I need you to do for the third paper is to start thinking about what some of the other theories that we have covered in class would say about her actions. So if you did Kantian ethics, what would feminism have to say about this whole issue? If you did feminism, then what would existentialism say, right? And you'll see what are the things that these theories approve of and which are the things that these theories disapprove of when it comes to Paulina. So the idea is that you will use that knowledge in order to establish a course of action that Paulina can follow, right? So the way in which you get to this point is by actually thinking, what is it that Paulina wants and how can I suggest she goes about it so that she remains on an ethical path. I would recommend that you first deal with these issues and then you go back and rework your thesis statement, because obviously the thesis statement that you had for the second paper is not going to work anymore, right? So here's a little bit of a graphic depiction of what this would look like. So once you've read the instructional sheet, you're going to take your second paper, you already submitted it, you got feedback from me, and now I need you to go over that feedback, make sure that you correct whatever needs to be corrected, grammar, like spelling, the use of the theory, whatnot. And once you have done that, you're ready to go on and to add what becomes the third paper. Which theory are you going to use now? As I said, you can't use the same theory that you had used before, but you could use Kantian ethics, utilitarianism, feminism, existentialism, or moral sentimentalism. Remember that your peers have worked really hard in order to develop an understandable guide through this theory. So we will cover those theories in two ways in our class. One, you and your peers are going to upload your YouTube recording of the theory, something like this, onto YouTube, and then we're going to put all those links on Blackboard. You will review what your peers did and come to class prepared. In class, what we're going to do is that we're going to have more like a workshop session, and in that session we're going to ask and we're going to elaborate on whatever questions, comments, or critiques we have on the theory, right? We will do this for each one of the theories in the next two classes that we have. So the class before, the Wednesday before Memorial Day and the Wednesday after Memorial Day are going to be classes that are dedicated to talking and getting to the nitty-gritty details that these theories have. So, going back to the third paper, you are going to do the same thing that you did in the second paper. Think about what Paulina does to Roberto, right? Not about what she thought she wanted to do, because we can't really evaluate that, but to what she actually did. Did she threaten him? Do you think that she actually killed him, right? How do you explain that final ghostly appearance that Roberto has in the paper? How would any other theory explained in class evaluate Paulina's actions, right? As the instructions establish, you need to use quotes in order to support the theory. You need to introduce the theory just as you did with the theory that you are studying on your own. Okay? So once you have that, you're going to start thinking about the ethical question: what should Paulina do? Paulina is definitely looking for something, right? Whether it is to put her past behind her, or she is actually looking for Roberto to confess, or she actually doesn't even care for the confession. She just like wants to feel powerful. How would you suggest Paulina act in this way? So what you need to say, right, is not what you think she is justified in doing based on the options that she already presented to us, but what might be something that she hasn't even considered doing? Does she have to deal with Roberto? Can she deal with the whole Roberto issue in a way that is not by torturing him or making him confess or lying to her husband so that she can get away with her plan, right? What do you think Paulina should have done? Not what did she do, but what should have Paulina done? And in order to do this, you need to keep in mind that what you want to recommend is something that is ethical, right? That is not going to get her in trouble, and that is not going to get um, hopefully Gerardo in trouble as well, because at this point we should see Gerardo as a bystander in this whole ordeal. So, in order to recommend this action, which ethical theory are you subscribing to? You can use any of the theories that you already used. Let's say that your paper was on existentialism and utilitarianism. Um, According to those theories, Paulina wasn't seen as an ethical agent. But if she were to do this based on the descriptions as existentialism gives us, then Paulina would actually come up with something that is pretty ethical and pretty darn good and leaves her at ease, or as much as at ease as she can possibly be, right? So section in the paper this is what this section in the paper is supposed to do. Then you will send it to me. The deadline for this paper is June 11, and if you think about it, wait, no. The deadline for this paper, see, I don't mind if you do this in your presentation. The deadline for this paper, as it's presented in the instructions here, is June 4th. That's the last Wednesday that we meet for classes, right? You're going to send this to me, and that will allow me to give you feedback. You will incorporate that feedback onto your paper, and you will turn it again with all those corrections on June 11. That's like the last thing that you have to do for class. You would have already done the presentation, you would have already done all the reflections. So what I'm getting you to do here is to actually incorporate all the knowledge that you have generated in the last few weeks, clean it up, and present it in something that is a paper that you can actually submit for a writing sample or the philosophy conference we have, right? So what I'm going to do, and this is kind of new, I had not done it with other classes and I had actually not thought about it till a couple of weeks ago, is that the grade that you get on this final submission will replace the grades that you got on Essay 2 and Essay 3. Obviously, that is if you submitted the essays on time. So if you didn't submit Essay 2, you need to talk to me. Obviously, you need to submit Essay 3 and then work on it in order to correct the mistakes that you made. If you're not interested in correcting the mistakes that you made and you are happy with the grade that you got, here's where the semester ends for you, right? But hopefully you are honor students and you want to get the best possible grade you can, then I would say you want to submit your paper with the revisions on June 11. So the last thing that I want you to know is that this would be considered something like a final paper. If you submit it on June 11, then I will grade the paper and put that grade on short paper 2, short paper 3. But if you're extra credit point hungry, here are my options. This is what I'm willing to offer. I will not give any extensions to anyone on this paper because obviously you already have working material for this. But because you will allow me to finish grading earlier, if you turn in your paper the day before on June 10, you will receive 15 extra credit points. If you turn it in on the day of before noon, you will receive 10 extra credit points. And if you receive it afternoon but before 4, then you get 5 extra credit points. If you turn it in after 4:01 till midnight, you get exactly what you get on the paper. Does that make sense? Okay. If you have any questions, ask me when you see me. This is the last class that we're going to have where we don't meet in our classroom. So starting Wednesday, we will meet again in E252 and we will have something less. I was going to use a philosophical word, but I will actually wait for that till I see you. We will have something that looks more like a traditional class. So if you do all these different things, if you finish your presentation, if you include other people's presentation in this paper, if you submit that paper to me and then incorporate the comments that I make to the third paper and the comments that I've already made to the second paper, you will be ready to enjoy the summer. I will see you later and ask me any questions that you have.